Hello everybody. Hello. So, looks like today is a Spark day. Yes, it is. Time to get some more drafts rolling. This will be live on the old Twitch if you feel like tuning in. Otherwise, you can watch these all on YouTube later on this week. So, I'm actually going to take a moment to wake up to start with, because I was up quite late last night doing some drafts, funnily enough. So I'm going to take a moment to wake up before I go into another draft. And I'm going to just take a look at my full collection for, specifically I want to search Mythic Rares and Rares for Spark. We have not much in white, not much in blue. 3 Massacre Girls, because, yeah, I keep getting them. This is what I'm interested in. Vivian's Archbows and Finale's Devastation. I want to see how legitimate those cards are for Elf Ball at some point. So I'll try to play Elf Ball with Standard. See how well it goes. I'm curious as to Casualties of War. I mean, generally you're only hitting 2 things with it, which is pretty bad. If you hit 3 things with it, it's pretty good. Is it 4 mana for destroy target creature, land, artifact, enchantment, or planeswalker? 6 mana for that. Probably worth it. Probably, it's a bit colour intensive, but yeah, if you're in those colours anyway, I suppose it doesn't matter. What else? Not much else, to be honest. Like, I've got a decent amount, but like I've had a lot of options to pick a rare in a pack during the draft, and it's been like Silent Submersible. That's happened like 3 times now. It's like, I don't want Silent Submersible. I want 0 copies of it. I don't want it to be a card. Or I would like it to be a card if it had some sort of evasion, like this creature cannot be blocked. Though, to be honest, I don't want that card to have this creature cannot be blocked, because I feel like mono blue tempo just being a deck where it has creatures that cannot be blocked is a bit eh. Like, they can't make it flying, obviously. I think it would be nice if Silent Submersible was like maybe a 2 mana 3/4 with crew. It had no like way of blocking itself, or like it had no evasion, but you could pay 1 to give it this creature cannot be blocked by creatures of X color. So, well, not X color, but you know, like insert color. So you could pay 1 and make it so it can't be blocked by white, and then it can swing in. Or you pay 1 and it can't be blocked by red, and it can swing in. And that works on multicolour creatures and all that sorts of good stuff. So I think something like that would be fine, because then at least like you're not only having to tap down your own creatures, you also have to pay some mana to get a... I would just give it flat draw rather than loot if I'd made that change. Because it would still be very parasitic, but maybe for 2 mana it'd be a bit too strong. The only thing is mono blue tends to not run 2 power creatures, so they'd have to tap down 2 creatures to crew it. That's the thing. There's a lot of things to consider with that card, which I don't have any of, because, yeah, why would I? It's just bad. My blue set's looking pretty good after the last draft, at least in the commons and uncommons. Black's like a bit, it's alright, it's not like super great right now. Red was pretty decent, we got quite a lot of good red cards in our last red-black draft, but the draft itself didn't do very well. So, there's a couple of cards I want to play around with more. want to play around with Sarkhan more. I want to try like some like stupid Sarkhan arcane adaptation like Goblins deck. I think that would be like totally legit. So you arcane adaptation naming goblins, and so that if your opponent attacks you or a Sarkhan you control with any creature, it gets hit for the number of goblins you have on board, which is normally a retardedly high number. And then the goblins got a little bit more support in the set with Krenko anyway. Not a huge amount, but they did get some more. I like the new Krenko. He's not as good as the old Krenko, but it's hard to tell if he's faster or not than the old Krenko. Because he also races. Like the whole point is that you're racing face by playing this Krenko as opposed to the other Krenko. The other Krenko is about building like critical mass, whereas this Krenko is about just going face. So. I think with cards like Samet's Sprint, which is a pretty pushed pump spell to be honest for a 1-pump. +2/+1 haste, and you get Scry. Pretty good. I think like Samet's Sprint on Krenko is pretty legit. Drop Krenko, next turn you like Samet Sprint him. It could be the kind of deck where you run lots of like the draw card, like one red draw card cycling. Possible. I want to play around with these two cards as well. I want to get more of them and then play around with them, but we'll see. For those of you guys watching on YouTube, if you want to skip the preamble, there'll be a... just skip the preamble. We'll get to the draft soon. Like I said, I just woke up. Seeing how many of you guys show up on Twitch first to watch some drafts. I suppose we can get started. So, traditional War of a Spark draft. 1,500 gems, please. Right. I think this is, without a question, a very easy pick. We take Ugin. It doesn't put us in any particular colour. His passive is basically pointless. But his +1 is great, and his +3 is great. Oh, his -3 is great. So he's just great.
I know more than you could learn in 1,000 lifetimes.
It's pretty badass. Although I will just change the sound a little bit because it's a little loud. But goddamn, look, some of the voice acting for MTGA's Planeswalkers is top notch. Oh look, it's an Ashiok. We tried Ashiok yesterday. I've got it recorded. It went quite well. Like, it was a good deck. It went 4 wins. I kind of punted my last game, but it did go pretty well. The only problem is that despite Ashiok milling our opponent, he didn't actually ever win us a single game. Like, we never won a single game by burning our opponent's deck out. So I don't think he's as good as you might think. Like, he's good for getting rid of God Eternals. But does that make him a sideboard Planeswalker that you bring in against decks with God Eternals? Maybe. I don't think he's actually as much of a win con as people might have once thought he was. And in that mind, I'm going to pick up something else. I would like to pick up Proliferate cards. Wondrous Strike is great removal, and it proliferates. Proliferation I want in the deck because, you know, Ugin. Being able to destroy multiple creatures with Ugin is just so much value. Although Eternal Skylord is very, very good as well. He's a great payoff for a mass. But I think I'm going to take the Wondrous Strike. Do I? I'm more likely to see more Wanderer's Strikes, I'm less likely to see more Skylords. The Skylord is very, very good. He's a very good threat. I think we'll take the Skylord. Okay, what do we have here? We have artifacts. We've got Contentious Plan to proliferate. Toll of the Invasion's pretty solid. Aid the Fallen's pretty solid. We'll probably see at least a couple more of these though. Sunblade Angel is a great late game threat. There's not a huge amount of flyers in the set, and Sunblade Angel is probably the strongest flyer next to Thunder Drake. I think Thunder Drake's a lot better, but Sunblade Angel definitely has a lot going for her. I think we're going to pick up the Sunblade Angel as a curved hopper. Speaking of, we've got ourselves a Thunder Drake here. We also have a Davriel. Most of the games I played Davriel, he got a fair bit of work done. But then again, so did Thunder Drake. And I ended up winning most of my games by killing my opponent, not burning them out of resources. So I think Thunder Drake is the pick here. And trying to build around cheaper creatures, I guess. That would be a good plan. Cheaper creatures, cheaper spells. Dovin's Veto. Don't know how relevant this is in the draft, because No Escape is a great counter spell in draft because it hits creatures and planeswalkers. Dovin's Veto hits planeswalkers, yes, but the only other spell in the set that counters non-creature spells is Dovin's Veto or Crushed Descent. And if you're casting Dovin's Veto to counter target non-creature spell, you can't get it with Crushed Descent anyway. So I don't think Dovin's Veto is very good for draft. But the rest of the cards in the set, we've got an Enforcer Griffin, which is very solid. Yeah, I think we're gonna go on the flying plan. We're gonna play Azorius Flyers by the looks of it, which is fine by me. Azorius Flyers is a pretty good combo. Speaking of good combos, Ugin's Conjurant. Nice creature to curve with, and if you have Ugin out, you can cast this for 2 more than you actually have mana of because of the way Ugin's passive works. So I think Ugin's Conjurant's a good pickup here. It's a nice curve card. You don't mind drawing it at any part of the game. Here we don't have a very excellent selection of cards, so I guess... I mean, Defiant Strike's pretty good though. It's a decent cantrip, can let you trade up against slightly higher power creatures. Might be relevant. It's also a cheap spell to be playing with the Thunder Drake as a second spell of the turn. There's also Bulwark Giant, which is a great blocker, and you gain some life, which can put you out of range of more aggro decks. But I think we've got quite a lot. We've got quite a decent late game curve already, so I think we're going to pick up the Defiant Strike as a nice cantrip. Let's see. Saheeli Silverwing is a bit of an expensive flyer. Aside from that, the only card in our colour is Dambreaker. And Dambreaker's alright, but again, very expensive. We don't want to fill our deck with 6 costs. Do we want to pick up another 4-drop flyer? Not necessarily the worst thing in the world. It does get cheaper with Ugin, so... We haven't seen a great deal of low-cost ground blockers yet, so I think Saheeli Silverwing is fine. It is a flyer. Very loud. Speaking of cheap ground blockers, but we also have the option of Godfarer's Statue. I don't know how valuable this is in draft, and then just putting more creatures on board and like stalling them out for when our flyers win the game. So I think I want to take the Wall of Runes. Nice early game blocker. Speaking of early game blockers, we have got Crowvod. Now, most people are like, oh, Wishcoin Crab's not that great in this set, really, because people can push up those high power creature or high power, high toughness creatures fairly easily. But we do want blockers. Do I prefer the Pouncing Lynx? There's a lot of bears in the set, so I suppose Pouncing Lynx can at least trade for one of them. and it can push some damage early on in the game. It's not the worst thing to hit with Ugin +1. So it's kind of between these two guys. I'm probably more... I'm going to pick up the Crowbolt. And contentious plan, proliferate, draw cards, seems good. Topple the statue I will take for the sideboard. I don't know how relevant it will come in, but, you know, better than nothing. I would rather take a Kai's Ghost form for the sideboard, but I'm not too bothered by it, and an unlikely 8 for the sideboard. Okay, so, pack 2, pick 1. We have Ugin's Conjurant, Tyrant Scorn, which is fair enough to splash for, it's a good card. We've got Spark Double, which is just incredible. I think we're picking up Spark Double. It's great with Proliferate. We could copy out Ugin or other Planeswalkers we pick up. Speaking of other Planeswalkers we could pick up Sorin. I don't think Sorin's the most powerful Planeswalker in the set. He's certainly very strong, but we have other options here that are also equally strong. Even Eternal, cheap flyer, Amassers to give you some ground blockers as well. I think Avid Eternal's the way forward. Yeah, we need to lower our curve, and Avid Eternal does that. Now this is a very interesting choice. Master of the Cause proliferates, which is not too bad, and he's a cheap ground blocker for the early game. Rally of Wings could be a massive blowout card with our deck. Almost Siren, well, a lot of our deck is flyers already. It's a difficult decision here, to be honest. We've also got Rising Populace, which is a pretty strong card, but it's better if you're trying to push a lot of creatures on the board, like a lot of cheap creatures. But he does grow regardless of what happens. And the Wanderer is good against burn. It's a strong card against red decks. It also exiles big boys. 4 mana exiling a big boy is pretty good. Having another Planeswalker wouldn't be bad if we pick up more Proliferate later on in the pack. I think the Wanderer is less situational than Rally of Wings, so I think we're going to pick up the Wanderer.
Prepare yourself.
Okay. Here we have another Aven Eternal, which is good. Soul Diviner is actually pretty legit, especially if you've got a decent amount of Proliferate in your deck. We don't have a huge amount of Proliferate. We would like to get some card draw, so if we see some Tamiyo's Epiphanies, we'll certainly pick them up. But I think Aven Eternal, again, just a low drop card that flies is good stuff. Gideon's Triumph is very good removal. Battlefield Promotion is don't think I'm really bothered by that combat trick. Defiant Strike cycles itself, that's why I think it's a fine combat trick. Crush Descent is an alright counter spell, it's not very good. If you can play it on curve, it's very nice, but aside from that, you're kind of just holding up mana on turn 4, which is not something our deck really wants to do. We want to be continuously dropping flying threats. I think Erratic Visionary is a good pick. He's a good ground blocker, and he can cycle through our deck, so that's good. Grateful Apparition or Wanderer's Strike. Both proliferate, which is something we want. Wanderer's Strike is exile, so that can be pretty powerful. Do we need Wanderer's Strike? Or do we want another flying proliferate creature? We need more things that get counters on themselves, really. We've also got Contentious Plan to proliferate and draw cards, which is not bad either, but the cards that we have that actually put counters on things, we've got Amass tokens, we have Wanderer as a Planeswalker, Spark Double makes creature enter with a +1/+1 counter or another Planeswalker. Thunder Drake gets counters on it. There's Ugin and Ugin's Conjurant. So we've got a decent amount of creatures and Planeswalkers that benefit from Proliferate. I think Grateful Apparition If we can get a counter on Grateful Apparition, it becomes very powerful because it self-proliferates, it proliferates on itself. But then there's one. It's not a very strong flyer to put pressure on Planeswalkers or your opponent itself, and it does die to every other flyer in the set. And I think people do pick up flyers quite highly because the options for removing flyers and also reach is pretty low. So I think Wanderer's Strike is the correct pick here. Pack's not particularly exciting for our deck, but No Escape is a fine counterspell, so I'm happy to pick up one of those. To just keep getting past Godfarer's statues, I really don't want to play one. Our curve's already pretty heavy on the 4-drops, which is fine, I think, because the format is a little bit on the slower side. That 4-drops are a fine thing to stack up on. Do we want a Godfarer statue for the late game? It's going to be difficult for us to cast it to get that much mana, and by the time we have that much mana to cast it, what is it doing? I guess it's kind of stopping our opponent from double casting, but I think the War Screecher has a lot more late game. Like, for 6 mana, you tap the War Screecher, your creatures get +1/+1. Can be a much better way for pushing damage. It's also a 1/3 flyer for 2, so it's basically Trusted Pegasus, or Concordant Pegasus from Allegiance, which was not a bad card. Here, I think we're going to pick up another Ugin's Conjurant. It works very well with Proliferate, and also Ugin himself, as well as being just you curve into him at any point. I'm not too excited by the Lockstone Sergeant or the Ashiok Skulker, so I think I'm going to pick up the Gateway Plaza in case we want to splash for other colours. Here, I think I'm going to take Rally of Wings. We've got enough flyers to pull this off, and I think it's powerful. It's a powerful enough effect, it could just win the game, so I think Rally of Wings is fine. We'll take another Crowbod. We'll take a Battlefield Promotion, though we probably won't play it. And Makeshift Battalion actually might be playable. Here, what have we got in our colours? Another Defiant Strike, we've got a Dovin. Got Interplanar Beacon. I don't think we need Interplanar Beacon. We're not splashing for Planeswalkers outside our colours. Dovin can be pretty good for locking down our opponent's other opponent's flyers, or for locking out their big boys until we draw answers for them. Defiant Strike cycles itself, which makes us one less card in the deck, which is fine. We don't want another Wall of Runes really, if we can help it. So I think we pick up the Dovin here.
It's hard to be a genius surrounded by lesser minds.
Yep, that's right, Dovin. Cool, so Pack's a bit dead for us as well. I think we just pick up the Jace's Triumph because Divination is like not the worst thing in the world. Oh, speaking of Jace's Triumph, here's a Jace. Do we want Jace? I don't know if we do want Jace. Do I want Jace? I do like playing Mill and Standard, just for the memes. Rescue Sphinx is pretty good. It allows you to recur value on things like maybe the Aven Eternal, Wall of Runes, Eternal Skylord, those sorts of things. We don't have a huge amount of creatures that we like to bounce. I guess Ugin's Conjurant is actually a fine thing to bounce for Rescue Sphinx. It does become a 4/3 flyer. It is in double blue. We don't have a huge... I mean, double blue's fine for us. It's not like we're splashing for Sphinx. Do we like Jace? He is a draw engine. And I guess he mills our opponent a little bit, which we don't care too much about. I don't think Jace does much for our deck. I mean, if we had have picked up the couple of Ashioks we saw, we could have probably started playing mill, but... I'm not too bothered by that. So it's between Sphinx, Defiant Strike, Contentious Plan, and I think picking up more flyers is better than not, so we're going to pick up the Sphinx. Here, pretty dead for cards in our colours. Nothing really very splashable either, so I think we just pick up the Teferi's Time Twist, which can be a nice trick. It's not it's not particularly exciting as a trick. Wall of Runes or Loxodon Sergeant. I think with the amount of flyers we have, having a Loxodon Sergeant to allow them to swing in and still block can give us a little bit of push. So I think we'll pick up the Loxodon Sergeant. Here we have an interesting choice. Stealth mission's not relevant when we have these many flyers. It does put counters on things though, which is actually not bad. Could take a Crush Descent, but it's not the best counter spell in the set. To be honest, I think No Escape is, and it's probably one of the only counter spells as well. I think Huatli. Now, Huatli might sound a bit odd, but we've picked up so far a Wall of Runes, which then is a 4/4 blocker. War Screecher, which turns into a 3/3. Erratic Visionary, which turns into a 3/3. The Ironclad Crowvolds turn into 5/5s. Sphinx, it would get downgraded, which kind of sucks. Thunder Drake gets buffed because it by another 1. Silverwing, so Silverwing gets buffed by 1. Enforcer Griffin gets buffed by 1. Yeah, so I think, and also she does give life, which is not hugely relevant for the most part, but it can put you out of the reach of burn. I think Huatli's probably worth taking,
write this story together.
which is fine. We don't have enough spells to make Bond of Insight worth it. I feel like if we were milling ourselves with Ashiok and Jace, if you're milling yourself with Ashiok, Bond of Insight isn't very good anyway, because you exile your graveyard every time you use Ashiok. I'm just deciding whether I want another Silverwing or do I want just a Defiant Strike. Just let our guys trade. I think we want another flyer. Another flyer. And here, I think we pick up another Contentious Plan. Give us some more Proliferate. We don't need to splash Planar Beacon. We have got 4 Planeswalkers, so it might give us a little bit of life, but otherwise it's not tapping for a colour that we care about. We can't really splash any Planeswalkers. We're not going to see any Planeswalkers we want to splash, so I think we just take another Wall of Runes. Here, I would rather have a Cura's Damnbreaker than anything else. Contentious Plan or Skythit Strix? I think Contentious Plan. I think Contentious Plan is better. I guess we'll take an Emergent Zone for the Vault. I think I've got all 4 copies of Aid the Fallen, so I guess I'll take an Unlikely Aid in case I don't have 4 copies of that, and we'll just take an Arboreal Grazer for the collection. Okay, so we've got quite a lot of playables. I think we've got a pretty solid deck available to us. So let's take a look-see. We might not even need the Gateway Plaza. I don't think we do need the Gateway Plaza. No mythics. What rares have we got? Ugin and Spark Double. I think that's a good start. And then let's just take a look at flying. We've got quite a lot of flyers. Eternal Skylord and the Aven Eternals. The Thunder Drake. The Enforcer Griffin. All very, very playable flyers. Sunblade Angel could be worth it, but we need to take a look at our lower curve things to start with. I think even with just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mass tokens, then get flying as well, so Rally of Wings might be worth it. If we were to jam all of our flyers in, we could play Rally of Wings. We could definitely play Rally of Wings. What would our deck look like if we did that? Like, so that's our creature base, I guess. Dovin seems fine. How relevant is Huatli? Huatli's not like super relevant. I mean, she would be if we played the Wall of Runes. Wanderer's pretty good for getting rid of big threats whilst we swing in the air. Ugin's Conjurants work well with Ugin and also just as a curve play. I think Jace's Triumph is worth playing. 3 Contentious Plans to proliferate Planeswalkers and things. Run a No Escape and a Wanderer's Strike maybe. What's our deck looking like there? Pretty heavy on the 4 drops, but we've got enough 2 and 3 drops that I don't think we're going to get completely ruined. Ideally, we want a couple more 2-drops that aren't contentious plans. Probably want the Erratic Visionary in there. If we were to chuck the Erratic Visionary in, what would we cut for it? Probably Saheeli Silverwing. It's one of our worst flyers for its cost. What else could we cut? If we wanted more early game, we could play a Wall of Runes, I guess. It's not particularly exciting. We could play a Wall of Runes instead of the other Saheeli Silverwing. Yeah, seems fine. And against slower decks, we can take out the Wall of Runes and replace it with flyers, for example. So I think this seems good. I think this is going to be Ugin's flying squad. Oh no, actually no, it's got to be better than that. Ugin's dive Hawkmen. If you don't get the reference there, then you really dive Hawkmen, dive. You need to go and watch Flash. Right, Ugin's dive Hawkmen. I think this deck, I mean, flyers can be pretty cancerous in this set, so we're going to be playing a pretty cancerous deck. We might get beat down on the ground a little hard if we just draw all of our late game, but I think if we get to 4 mana, we're pretty safe. So we've just got to get to 4 mana and we're all good, because then most of our draws are pretty powerful. If our opponent starts dropping big 5 power creatures, we're going to be in a tough spot. But I think we can work around that. Especially with Ugin's Conjurant that can basically trade with them and then it just exists on the board as another chump blocker. So, yeah. Okie dokie. I will end my recording quickly, and then for those of you that are watching on YouTube, check out the next video. Or if you'd like, just check out my Twitch, because you can watch me play this live at sometimes. Sometimes when I happen to be live to play on Twitch. Normally on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Wednesdays and Thursdays. That's a good time to do the Twitch. So yeah, that'll be the end of deck building, and we'll move on to some games in a moment. See you guys around.